No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
Every Saturday.
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it on north of here in the shopping mall. Ooh, where'd the old town go? Did my hometown get old? Or just me? Did all my friends get old? Or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told? Or just me?
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us this morning here at 614-5553, and my lovely co-host, as usual, my lovely wife, Debbie Moore. Tell us what's going on today.
Good morning, Ron. Today is October the 26th. Is that
Did you have
correct?
to check?
I had to
Yes,
check in my head.
Yes, it is October 26th.
It is October, and I am in the Whoop studio. Good morning. Lots of fun things going on in the community this weekend. We have the Benton's Arts and Heritage Day going on at the courthouse at Benton. I believe they started at 10 a.m. this morning. They have some really good things going on that you might want to take your kids by to see, like they have someone doing some blacksmithing and those kinds of things that you just don't see anywhere anymore. So be sure that you get by there. Also, they're going to have gospel music going on starting at 11 o'clock. Lots of food and fun and entertainment for the whole family, including quilts and tractors and a snake exhibit. So when you have a snake exhibit, you've had it all.
That's right.
Today at Short Creek Church up in McMean County, we'd like to say good morning to our Carter friends up there. From 11 to 1 today, they're going to have soup, socks, and shots. You can get your flu shot, have a bowl of soup, and get some socks. Get you ready for the winter. And tomorrow, something that our listeners wait for all year is the Fort Hill Cemetery Tour.
Right.
It'll be going on from 4 to 6 p.m. tomorrow. You park at the Boys Club, and a little van will pick you up and take you up to the top of the hill. And for $5, you get to walk around through the cemetery, and there's some folks up there telling the family histories of the Robertsons, Ramseys, Kiblers, Millions, Cates, Kirbys, Grants, and Rogers families. Yeah. I saw the costumes, best costumes I've ever seen. They'll be dressed in costume, and I think the good thing about this project is it gets a lot of young people involved. The senior history majors at Lee University do the research, write the scripts, get their friends to portray the folks. And this is the 7th year, and it's getting to be a very widely known project. If you go close to 6 o'clock, I suggest that you take your flashlight in case it gets dark before you get back to your car.
And you may want to wear a jacket.
I think wear
several jackets,
gloves and jackets, and I would almost suggest if you're a little bit older and you want to get through there, be there at 3:30 and be one of the first ones in line, and that should be a lot of fun. We're talking about Chattata Valley. Did I get it, Jack? Did I get close?
Pretty close, yes.
Well, I've heard it called Shady Valley and Chattata and.
Just, it doesn't matter what you call me, just call me.
And before we get started, I want to mention one thing is congratulations to Bradley Central High School. They played their 1,000th football game as a high school last night. And
they won.
Someone asked me if I was there for all those games. I said, no, I didn't start going to 27, so I missed the first 50 or so. And somebody said, well, have you had 1,000 hot dogs at Bradley High School? And I said, oh, no, I've had 2,500 at Bradley High School over my years. So, but great program. Players all the way back from 52 showed up, so that's getting them back, you know. And unfortunately, I remember Carl Green, who passed away last year. Carl came in and did our show one time and asked him who was his football coach at Bradley, and he said Jimmy Lovell, and that goes way on back. So you know, that was a real history that we lost there. But congratulations to Bradley High School, and they won their 1,000th game. Congratulations to them. Congratulations, Cleveland High School, being big upset over Ooltewah last night. Of course, if you're a Cleveland fan, you didn't think it was going to be an upset. You thought you were going to win. But looking at the rankings, that was an upset. One of the best ball games I heard there last night. So just want to say congratulations to those folks.
And while we're congratulating folks, let's say congratulations to the folks here at Whoop that raised $15,000 for Alzheimer's this week.
That was great. Thank you, anybody who
And it was
helped
great, and we're enjoying the leftover cookies this morning.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Mr. John, how you doing?
Hey, Bullet, how are you?
I've kind of got a sore throat this morning. I was hollering and yapping over last night, and my throat's a little bit sore this morning from too much yelling.
Pretty good ball game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I was going to call in on that. I couldn't ever get in on your show last night. I knew the trivia.
Oh, well, I thought you would know it.
Yeah. But anyway, I just want to say that I'm going to be rooting for Bradley next week. And but either way, Cleveland's going to be in the playoffs if they win it, Bradley wins or not. But it was a good game for Cleveland, and there was a caller called in. I didn't like his comments a little bit, but he said Ooltewah had more talent. He must have not watched the same ball game I did last night.
Both of them had very good talent there, you know, and like I say, there were some things that if Ooltewah hadn't made a mistake here, but that's what football games are. You make those mistakes, and so, you know, it could have went either way. You know, a fumble here, that big 95-yard pass play that they did early in the game sort of put Ooltewah back on their heels, and
they both fumbled a lot, didn't they?
yeah, they sure do. And that's going to kill them on later on. You know, the only thing, you know, I know that if Bradley beats East Hamilton, it makes Cleveland probably the number one team in the district, and they'll get to
3 games at home, right?
Yeah, they'll play about 3 games at home.
Yeah.
And that would be big for them.
What are you talking about today? I didn't hear you when you first come on.
We're talking about Chattata Valley. If you go to Charleston, take a right.
Okay.
That's the quickest way to get there. Or go out
By the golf course is
Benton
how I
Pike
get
and
there.
take a left.
Did you get rid of your skunk?
Yes,
We got rid of our skunk.
Well, anyway,
We put it in the back of your car. Have you found it?
yeah, I was wondering what that smelled.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm fixing to take me some lozenges because
Okay. Thanks, Bullet.
All
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We have been overrun with groundhogs, skunks, and other varmints, and it has been an interesting undertaking.
I don't mind them seeing them, but when they get under the house is when
It's a
becomes
trip.
a
It's
concern.
Tell us about the new exhibit down at the museum, Ron, before we get started.
Building Cleveland up. They're talking about Cleveland from 1880s on up. I think an interesting story is that the city of Cleveland actually died at one time, and the paper actually had a obituary in there. And I think we were from 1880, somewhere in there, 2 years, we just dissolved the city. And then we
Fired everybody.
and
Just said
they said they were just tired of it, and but it came back luckily. And there are some great exhibits down there. I've seen a picture I'd never seen before of them actually building the Cherokee Hotel. I've seen a lot of old pictures of the Cherokee, but this actually was the framing, all 7 stories framed up, and I'd never saw that picture. And then they got some posters from the Princess Theater I'd never seen before, and they're from like in the 20s, and what was interesting, I thought they were a little risque. There were some drawings of vaudeville type shows and things, so I thought I was going for that time period to be really risque.
We were really surprised.
You know, you can look at our commercials on TV now, and it's not even.
They have the old stitching machine out of
Ganaways.
That was just to smell it, you knew that it had been in a leather shop for a long
And
time.
of course, growing up, Ganaways was a great place to go in because I always tell my dad, so we need to buy a saddle. He said, well, we don't have a horse, but if you have a saddle, you get a horse, don't you? I thought it would just work that way.
But it's a lot of fun, and it's well worth the $5 to go in and see it and the rest of the exhibits down there. And the folks down at the museum are working really hard. They have a new manager there in the gift shop, and and it's still a nice, very nice gift shop, and all my books are down there. Go down there and buy them.
And there is an original picture of
A print.
from the Cherokee. It was hanging up in there. So
It's that traditional print of Sequoia that has been colorized, and I had always thought that people talked about the prints of the Indians hanging up in the hotel, and I always thought they were huge, some kind of huge paintings. Well, they're just little prints, but you do get to see one of, and it's really, a 1925 print.
And for not only do you get to see that exhibit, you get to see the rest of the entire museum, and they've made a lot of changes if you haven't been there in a while. And they'll be glad to talk to you about membership too,
and volunteering.
And volunteering. So any of those things going
And if
down.
you get the second level of membership down there, which I won't quote a price, but it's not much more than a family membership, you can get into a lot of museums in America free.
I think it's 100
It's
at
100,
that level. Yeah.
And so that's not a bad deal if you go to lots of museums like we do. All right. Good morning. We have Jack Sanders with us today, and Jack has lived up in the Chaitata Valley for quite a few years, and we're just going to be talking about his memories of who lived up in the valley and who still lives in the valley, and who some of the old houses belong to. Now, if you take a ride down through that valley, you get to see some of the oldest buildings, and I think one of the things that always strikes me is a lot of the farms are still intact, and so you get to see the older farms, which is a really nice thing.
Who owns all those farms up there now? Do you know all of them?
Or some of them.
Well, I know most of them.
Let's
I guess.
start. Let's kind of, if in case someone hasn't heard, where's the valley located?
Chaitata Valley is named after the creek that runs from the headwaters area. If anybody knows about Benton Pike and the golf course now, the springs around that area start Chaitata Creek, and the Chaitata Valley follows the creek from there down to the Hiwassee River, basically.
And basically, probably when I ride the trail, I think, okay, this is just an old stock trail or an Indian trail, because it is kind of a little bit wavy and up and down the hills and stuff. So I'm thinking when you're on that road, you are on a road that's way before pre-removal. And some of the houses up through there we know are claimed to be from the 1840s and 1860s, and some of them I really seriously think by looking at them that they are pre-removal houses.
That creek runs north too, right?
Yes.
Okay. You know, we have a lot of creeks there, but there's another one that runs north, and I think is it Diane Calfee lives in the house where the big lake is?
Right.
And there's that's a spring there.
Big spring right there. And
what is the name of that spring? Does it have a name? Or is it the spring at the old Lester Goins house?
There's a Morlock spring up there, but I think it's on Benton Pike a little more.
What orphanage was that? A Church of God orphanage, you
Church
think?
of God orphanage at one time, yes, when I was young, that was there.
So you remember the orphanage actually being there.
Is that is where Diane Calfee lives in?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
The big.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
You see that house shortly after you turn off at the golf course.
It's a white house.
A white house, and in the last few years, it did have a little boat house or some kind of structure there at the end of it that made it very attractive. And I think they've had one of the storms got it, and they've had to remove it now. But I think that probably, do you think the orphanage building itself is from the 1930s or 40s? Or do you have a clue?
I really don't know for sure. The house, I was thinking the house it wasn't built by them, by the orphanage. No, it was built by.
Okay.
It was the Blair farm, I believe.
If someone, I'm sure if any of our listeners know, they'll call in and let us know for sure. And that's one of the things that we were talking about before we went on the air, that Mrs. Manley wrote a great book about Chaitata Valley. And, and all it is her memories. And some research, some good research, but it's all typed up nicely. And I think I'm going to talk to the folks up in Charleston about possibly getting with her family and reprinting this book, because anyone that does research really needs this book.
About 108 pages.
It's 100 pages, and it is really well done. And it looks like to me that someone's retyped it and replaced the pictures, and it's a good history. But anyway, there was an orphanage there at that big white house. And then when you go on around the curve a little bit, you run into a little small brick house. And I think we decided that was the Taylor house. And what do you know about it, Jack?
Well, Lester Goins lived there originally before he bought the one we're talking about, where the orphanage was, and when I was young, that's where he lived, and it's an old house that has been in the valley probably as long as just about any of the rest of them.
What always strikes me about that house is it's just like a 4-room house maybe. It's real small, but it has very ornate brickwork on it. Now, would that be the old Ritchie house? That's the old Ritchie farm.
That's old Ritchie farm there. All that right in there, and it could be, but it's called the Taylor house, and I don't.
Well, I'm just going to have to figure out who the Taylors were, and it may
Right.
be in Miss Manley's book here, and I just haven't run into it. But also at that spot, when you're driving along the road, one of the things that I noticed up there is there's a very nice little metal marker, and it's just probably like a size of a regular sheet of paper. It's not very big, and it says the Taylor Cemetery. Well, you guys know that the word cemetery always gets my attention. And Jack, have you actually seen that little cemetery?
Yes, I have. It's up kind of behind where the loafing barn is right now.
What is a loafing barn?
It's where cows stay before they get milked.
Okay, where they're loafing around. Okay,
Sort of like my den.
Right.
that's where Ron stays before he gets fed. Okay,
But that cemetery was the cemetery for the valley before the Chedita, before the New Friendship Cemetery was started.
That is-
was the oldest cemetery, I think, in the valley.
yeah. Is it? 30 graves, 100 graves. Guess
Well, there's
more than 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's 30 or 40, I would guess. It's kind of hard to say.
Now, and when you pass New Friendship Baptist Church there was the big old house on the left. It got blown down in a storm, late 90s, early 80s, I guess, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, whose house was that? And it was an older house, too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was one of the, probably built in the 1860s, originally a Greenberry Kate house, it was called. Some of the Julians lived there a long time, but Robert Hamilton owns it now, and his parents were living there, Robert Sr., when the tornado came through and tore it down.
Yeah, it completely got it.
Yep,
Yeah,
it sure
that was
did.
sad, That.
Mhm.
Speaking of Julian, if you're on the internet right now, you'll see a picture behind us, and that is the Julian men. I don't know who any of them are,
I
but
think the one in the center at the bottom is Reverend Ajam Julian, probably born in the 1840s without looking at anything. And Julian's Chapel was actually named after him. And he's got quite the extensive, there's a lot of stuff been written about him, is what I'm trying to say. But I happened to be in the history branch on Thursday, and someone had brought in a Bible dictionary that's out of the Julian family. And I assume since it was left there that they donated it. I wasn't there actually when Mr. Julian brought it in. But what a wonderful thing to be donated to the library, or it might have been more appropriate to put it in the museum. I really don't know. But it was the Bible dictionary that had been used by preachers out of that family for several generations. So I'm kind of anxious I didn't open up the box and look at it because I was working on something else and just had a few minutes, but it was securely kept in a fruitcake box.
Well, that's
And
some of the good stuff.
Yeah, I just would hope
That and
that.
shoe boxes. Shoe boxes and fruitcake boxes. That's
And
really
most
good.
of you remember your grandma keeping her pictures in the old Valentine candy boxes.
Yeah, that was a good place too. Yeah, Jack, that creek is it? It's water all the time. It's never a dry creek, is it?
Never seen it dry. It's at least some water all the time.
Is it 20 feet, 30 feet wide most places? It's not, a lot bigger than that.
Pretty close to, that's a pretty good guess. But sometimes a little wider and some a little narrower.
And
but
deep parts 3 or 4 feet, 5, 6 feet.
generally,
Yeah,
you
so-
can usually wade without getting your head underwater.
I think shaded.
Is they fish and frogs and turtles and all
Snakes.
that?
Yeah,
Snakes.
yeah.
Well, yeah, of course snakes. But
Any beaver troubles up in there these days?
Not a lot. Every once in a while we have some move in. on some side streams. That stream's a little too big for,
Okay.
or a little too fast moving, I think, for beavers.
And the
to-
headwaters for it comes out of like close to the golf course, or
right,
where's?
right in that area. There's 2 or 3 springs right up there.
Does it not amaze you the amount of water that can bubble up
It
out of
is.
the ground around here?
It is.
It's wonderful. And of course, that's the word's supposed to mean clear water or cool
Right.
water or something like that. And I will tell you, on the 1830s Indian maps, when they were getting ready to do the removal and they were, drawing up some of the area and stuff, it's listed as Chedita on there. So, I mean, that's a word that goes way back, and it
It's
may
a
be a
Cherokee-
creek,
it's
maybe
a
a Cherokee
Cherokee.
or a Creek word. I don't know.
Supposedly it is, and the big Chedita is what comes down that way. Little Chedita comes from the Tasso area, and
Okay.
it feeds into it about Tasso Road.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really 2 come together there. But
Well, Jack, tell us about when your family came to the valley.
we came to the valley in 1952, when I was 5 years old, and we bought the farm there from a cattle dealer, but he had just had it for a little while, but Dr. Sullivan had owned it for several years during the 40s. And,
Had Dr. Sullivan actually lived there?
I don't think that he had lived there. But he had it kind of like a show place. I mean, he had put some money into it, apparently.
Well,
It
good.
was
That
very-
probably, Ron and I find that if you keep the roof on the place, it stays standing a lot longer. People will let just the back corner get blown off of an old barn, and first thing you know, the whole barn goes down because of the weather gets in there. So thank goodness that Dr. Sullivan saved it there. And so your dad bought it, and then he actually farmed it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he farmed it, and he was also a school teacher. He taught school also, and I don't see how some of those people did what they did, but
Where did he teach?
Well, he started in Charleston as an ag teacher when we lived there, and then he went to Bradley Elementary, and he was a principal there for a few years before he retired. But farmed, we still had mules when I first remember, but he bought a little tractor, Ferguson 35. Not too long after that, and we were really flying. We had a tractor to.
Well, just imagine if he saw the farm equipment today, what he would think. Now, he died at a very old age.
He was 90.
Well,
almost
that's a
91. but
nice ripe age,
It is.
and so he did get to see a lot of changes in the
yeah.
valley.
Yes,
Now,
indeed.
when you first moved into the valley, was the road paved?
Yes, that road was. It was, but
I'm kind of surprised.
blacktop.
It was blacktopped. It was somewhat paved.
But the road going to Tasso was none of the side roads were paved; they were still gravel.
So it was definitely. I think it was definitely an old wagon road that came down through there.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Followed the creek, basically.
Well, tell us about the house that stands there on the farm, the old house.
Well, the house that's on the farm is called the Mee House, M-E-E. It was built sometime in the 1840s, we think. We're not positive about the date, but it's one of the typical type houses that were built around the area. Some of the more well-to-do landowners, I think, had some of these type houses called a 4x4. There's 4 rooms upstairs, 4 rooms downstairs, with the hall running the length of the house, top and bottom. And then they have a wing out to the side where your kitchen and pantry or whatever usually was located. But
to keep the heat down and the fire
right,
possibility away from the main house, right?
Of course, they originally, they kept the kitchen separate, but I think in this time and 2 or 3 of the houses I've seen like this, they begin attaching them, but kind of separate.
Well, you just had to keep that heat away and the
Right.
possibility of fire away.
Right.
Okay, well, I see 2 chimneys on it, and they look like they're original
They are.
with the fluted tops, which is real hard to find. Tell us about the whole structure's brick, which is really nice. Do you think that the brick is original to the house?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It's all, and every wall in the house is solid brick. There's every
So there's
wall,
it's not a log house.
No.
Wow.
Every wall goes all the way to the ground, so there's no easy way to get wiring and plumbing between the walls.
Before we went on the air, you were talking about finding brick from the house there on the property. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, there's different bricks that you find around, and when there was an old house that's been torn down, an old slave house that was at a different place. But sometimes you find bricks with little handprints in them, little designs cut in them. I guess whoever made them was kind of whiling away the time a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Now, what we see is a window at the top over the porch in the center. Was there any indication that might have one time been a door, or is that mostly?
No, and as a matter of fact, I think the houses like that you'll see did not have the front porch on them. They were what do they call, the Federalist type?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't probably have a porch at all. That porch was probably added early 1900s.
We find that true a lot of times, is that it had a porch of some type or another on the front of it. Now, I have no reservation about saying that house is from the 1840s. The Indian houses had typically had a door there in the center where the windows are. I don't know why, and probably had a sleeping porch on top of the porch. But it's just like today. Not all the houses were built just alike, but the ones down in the southern part of Bradley County happened to be like that.
Now, I read that this was General Joseph Mee, and I don't know anything about General Joseph Mee. Maybe you do, but it was 1,000-acre farm originally, and they had slave quarters. There's a slave building right behind your house, the house now, right?
Right. And depending on the history you read, well, it's really Columbus Mee that supposedly was the farmer. Okay. I think Joseph Mee was his father or grandfather. I can't remember, but yes, and 1,000 to 1,400 acres. There were actually two slave houses that we know of. Mm-hmm. That were brick.
I told Jack that I'm going to check the Cherokee evaluations of the properties in this area. There were several Cherokees listed as living up in this area, and I would think if we can find someone that had a house that fits these measurements, and with the slave houses there, we know it's going to be someone that probably owned slaves. We could at least have a good guess at what Cherokee would have occupied that space. Yeah. Now, Columbus Mee later on moved into Cleveland, I believe, and became one of the first bottlers of Coca-Cola, and his house is still standing on Ocoee Street. When you go to the gas company, where the old J.C. Penney's and all that was torn down, and they're building the new building for Lee, and then there's where the old gas company used to be, and it's either the first or the second house right in there. It's called the Mee House, and it's from the early 1900s, I'm sure, and it has been beautifully refinished and still standing and looking great. And so we're glad to have that a bit of history, but we know that he is the same Mee that owned this property too.
Yeah, General Joseph Mee. Do you know anything about him, who he was? I mean,
that's all I know about him.
Other than what's in the.
So he was.
Now, one of them was. Let me say this. Yeah. One of them was in the Revolutionary War at Kings Mountain in North Carolina, one of the Mees, and it may have been Joseph Mee.
We need to check in that too, because if he's buried in the Mee Cemetery, that'd be a big deal. And I'd say that's where he's at.
I know John is. I can't remember about Joseph.
And we understand now that the Mee Cemetery is actually on the property that belongs to the John Moore farm. Tell us a little bit about that cemetery, the Mee Cemetery.
Well, that's the family cemetery. It was on what they referred to as the Lower Mee Farm. It's I always thought that was strange going north and called the Lower, but because the creek flows that way. Mm-hmm. And it's there overlooking the creek. It's a beautiful place, just kind of on a rock bluff, above a rock bluff, and I'm sure that's why they picked it. But it's got hewn limestone rocks around to fence it in, and it's an old cemetery.
And like most old cemeteries, when you work on a farm, the Mee Cemetery the cemetery is about the last thing that you have time to clean up, but at least it is mostly enclosed inside this fence. And, some of our big pioneers of this area are buried there. But is Joseph Mee Ron from the Civil War?
Not from 1840, he wouldn't be.
Well,
I mean, he was. Now, I don't know. I've not found anything about General Joseph Mee. I just know that from reading a lot of stuff that your son had posted on his blogs and things, that was that's who built the house, or at least we think who that built the house.
And I should have brought it with me, but my son does have a history of Bradley County that he had ordered somewhere, and it talks about the Revolutionary War, Kings Mountain connection a little bit.
Yeah, and
before
we had several people come on down into this area that's out of the Kings Mountain. I know that the Lusk family down in the lower part of Bradley County was involved in that too. McCaslin Springs, where's that?
Well, now that's the one at the Church of God,
Oh, is it?
I think.
But that's where the
No. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Takes me a while.
He had to look at the picture.
I had to look at the picture. That's where Bradley County was formed, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's over at the Bob Julian place there on Tasso Road, right? Pretty close to where Tasso Road crosses Little Chedita Creek before you get to Dry Valley coming from Chedita Valley.
Now, the really good thing about this little book is it's got a really nice map in it. But now this is actually where, when we got ready to form Bradley County, the sheriff of Meade County was put in charge of the program kind of thing. And everyone got together and decided who they wanted to be what. And then they went here to McCaslin Springs, and they formed Bradley County at that point. And I know that when Lamar Lawson was still alive and he was sheriff, all the county officials at that time went out there and they rededicated Bradley County. I guess it was the 100th anniversary or something, or 150th anniversary of Bradley County, and they rededicated it, standing there in that same field. And I think it was quite a moving experience for everyone. But that little piece of land had a whole lot to do with Bradley County. The Julian family was there fairly early. And I know that in 1870 or so, they built the Julian Chapel in honor of Reverend Isham Julian, whose dictionary was donated yesterday to the library. And the building's still standing. The Julian Chapel building is still standing, pretty much in its pristine condition. I'm not pristine, its original condition. It's got some issues now. You know, it's getting some age on it, and it's not used, and there's just not money around, federal monies or anything like that, to save these buildings like that, and it's a shame. This week as I look at this building, I see it's got the two different entrances, which always tells us that it's a really old church building, and those two doorways were to allow the men to go in one door and the women to go in another door, is what I've been told. And I took some folks from the State Department down to Red Hill United Methodist Church this weekend. This week, that was, the church was started before the white folks came in here. But we think the church building's probably from the 1860s. But it does not qualify for the National Registry because they've built just a little bit of a building there on the front so that they could have indoor plumbing in the 1960s or 70s.
Yeah, shame on them.
And it really frustrated me that you still have the original wooden walls. You still have the original schoolhouse globes hanging from the ceilings, the original windows, the bell tower, wood on the outside, just like it was when it was built. But just because that small addition's been put to the front, it does not qualify.
That's a shame. You're listening to Whoop FM Old Town Cleveland. You can call us here at 614-5553. We got Jack Sanders here. We're talking about Chedita Valley. And for you who don't know where Chedita Valley is, listen and we will tell you. But you go out Benton Pike and you turn left across from the golf course and go up that road. That's basically going right up Chedita Valley. And we got a caller here. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Push that button again.
Let me push that button again. There we go.
You got to learn to use that phone, right?
Well, I pushed the wrong button there.
Okay. I'm going to tell you what I know about that.
Okay.
It was always Shady Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people used to call. I thought it was growing up. It was Shady Valley.
I used to live in this lady's house. Her last name was Hill when she was at home, and her mom and dad had a farm down there, and they are buried in one of them graveyards. And her baby is buried there too. But she married a Guffey, and she was a school teacher. And I went with her one time, and we went back over through a pasture, through some woods, to a place where the Slades had built a big water wheel. She showed me that. Do you remember the Hill Farm?
I remember the hills, several of the hills there, but I certainly do not remember a water wheel. I'd like to know where that was.
Well, it wasn't on their farm.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere else. She took me, and she showed me that, and it was something to see. And she said the Slades had built it. But she growed up down there, and her brother,
Herb, U-R-B, Herb Hill, yes.
He moved out here on Ocoee Street. I think it's where he died at.
Right.
But Maddie Sue went to somewhere in, I forgot where it was at, with her husband, and she was buried down there. She wanted to be buried here, but he didn't bring her back. I think it was Alabama.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to be buried down there either.
But I remember her showing me that farm and that water wheel, and then we went up to the graveyard.
What was the water wheel? Was wood or was it metal?
No, it was made out of brick. There was bricks in it.
That would be a slow-moving water wheel, wouldn't
Well,
it?
probably the foundation, what she's talking
the
about.
foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I doubt the wheel itself was brick.
The water wheel was gone. It
Yeah.
was where it, had been.
Okay, was it 2 or 3 stories high, or was it just 1 story high?
I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
But anyway, there's one there if it's not washed away now.
The old dam is still there. Yes, I know where you're talking about now. Right.
We're with you now. Is that the Kate Dam? Or would you?
It's the only one left. Yeah, I think John Kate is one he built.
I think that the book here shows a dam, and I think they called it the Kate Dam.
I believe that's correct.
Well, thank you, Red.
Okay. Bye.
Good talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's interesting.
Yeah. I have to tell my one Alabama joke here real quick. Nick Saban's only going to dress 20 players today against Tennessee. The rest of the team has to get dressed themselves.
We're not going to laugh to encourage
Good
you.
morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
This is Peggy.
Hey, Peggy, how are you? I think that's what they say when you call Obamacare website now. They say, "This is Peggy. Can I help you?"
I just had to do that, Rod.
Well, so how are you, Miss Ella?
I'm doing fine. I didn't go this weekend, though. I'm trying to save up for my trip to California.
Right. Well, when are you going to take that?
Probably the 29th of November.
Oh, so right after Thanksgiving, going to go. How long are you going to stay?
Probably about 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, you going to stay? You going to stay through Christmas?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Too boring.
Oh, too boring. So California's boring compared to Tennessee, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no Pokies out there?
No, the only bar I know is Mexican.
Okay. All right. Well, it's cold out there, so I'd stay in and stay warm today.
Not in California.
I'm talking about here today. It's cold here today.
I know. I've already been outside.
Yeah, you get to wear a big coat today.
Yeah, I wish I was in California. It's a lot warmer.
It would be. All right. Well,
all right.
Good talking to you, Miss Ella.
Bye, Miss Ella. Thank you, darling.
Bye-bye.
I hope she gets to go to California. She always has a good time visiting out there.
She has a good time no matter where she is.
I'm looking at this wonderful hand-drawn map that came out of the book, and it says that Kate's Mill is located between Kate Lane and the Old Bacon Road, almost to the Old Bacon Road. And then the very next branch is Me Branch. Is that close to your house, the Me Branch?
Yes, it's a little bit north of my house. It's really kind of the border of some of my back of my property, the next one over, and John Moore's property, where the cemetery is located.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Moorlock Springs on here is close to Benton Pike. What would be right in that area? Is that close? That's kind of close to the golf course, isn't it?
It is. There's the Moorlocks lived, really on the golf course side of Benton Pike, and then there's some springs right on the other side. There's about 3 springs right up there in that.
I see
area.
those. That is really interesting.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
This is T-Bandit.
Hey, T. Now T's going to tell us about the Lester Goin house. I know.
Yeah.
Hey, you got a fish truck today?
Well, he's supposed to be here. He hadn't got here yet.
So the fish truck is late. Okay.
And he ain't late. I don't have no customers no how.
Well, he may show up with frozen fish here in a minute. What do you remember about Shady Valley?
Shady Valley?
Yeah, go ahead. So you can tell who lived there for a long time. They call it that.
Well, I was member people didn't call it Shady Valley. This Shady Valley. I thought it named after a shade crash for a long time. Now, well, the Lester Goins house is that old big brick house right up before you get to the church up there.
Yeah, now, has it been there as long as you can remember? Or
Yeah, as long as I can remember, Lester drove a school bus. Lester Goins did.
Uh-huh.
And he had a milk truck, had a milk route. And that filling station, where you turn that curve, right there next to the river, where you go across the railroad and everything on the old highway, he had a service station there that blowed down with a tornado. On the right there, you go down that curve.
You used to do some farming up there on John Moore's farm, didn't you, when you was younger?
No.
I thought you grew tobacco up there. On John Moore's farm.
Oh, it was Jim Longworth
Oh, okay.
farm when I lived there.
So, and you grew a little tobacco?
I grew tobacco and cotton and just about everything. Corn. Yeah, that's where I was half raised at.
Half raised.
Was there any place else that you raised, or was that it?
We lived up in Athens for a couple of 3 years, and out there at Georgetown at T.J. Marler's place down there. Lived there for a while.
What farmers have you dealt with up there on that end up there in Shadow Valley?
This G.R. Moore and Jim Longworth is the only ones that we had too much dealings with. I mean,
what about while you was at the co-op?
While I was at the co-op,
yeah,
everybody.
Well, name some of them.
Everybody in John Hefner for one.
Mm-hmm.
He traded down here, and all the mowers I traded down here, and Houston's was up by then, and then I know Jack, his daddy traded down here. So when I first started, Paul, I remember Paul a long time ago.
I imagine you sprayed a few fields up in there too.
I was the best sprayer there was in Bradley County.
You can spread it pretty thick.
That's the only one down there. That's the reason.
You were the best and only. Okay.
Yeah. No, I remember a lot of people from up in there at dairy farms over in Shady Valley, and Dotson's farm, and all the Hopes. There was 3 different Hope farms over there.
Well, in this little book that we're looking at, it shows Mr. Hope. I believe his first name is Paul. No, Mr. Hope. What?
Jim, Sam, and Charlie.
Okay.
Charlie's the one that's got
Charlie. They show a picture of him plowing behind mules.
Yeah, and Charlie had a place over in the other valley over the Rabbit Valley, Rabbit Farm or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Dwight Burke married Sam's daughter, Joanne.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of come from New York down there and bought farms too. They got millions of dollars for their land up in New York and come down there in Shady Valley.
Did they know how to farm?
I reckon they done pretty good.
Or at least they found somebody with them that knew how. Of course, now the Calfies are up there running a dairy, and
yeah, that's about. They got a dairy, and then up by Polk County, so
yeah, Rex has got one up there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, T. Well, we hope your fish truck shows up here in a few.
It's down here now.
The fish have arrived. So if somebody needs fish, you need to head down to the co-op and pick them up.
They've got plenty of them, I'd say, if they ain't froze.
Okay, thanks, T. Bye.
Farming up in that valley there, what all do they farm up through there? I mean, is it predominantly cattle, or is there a lot of crops?
Today.
Yeah.
Well, today it's mostly beef cattle, and there's a little bit of row crop. The land in there is rolling. It's good ground, but it's not conducive to large scale row crop. We do some here and there, mostly beef cattle. But when I moved there, just about every farm was a dairy farm. That was the thing at that time.
And at that time, where was the milk going?
Had a creamery in Cleveland here that they brought it to, and I can't remember the name of it. You put it in cans.
Mr. Dugan's, maybe?
Out here on
Inman Street.
Was that where
right off Inman Street. He didn't. Okay.
Good morning, you're live on
You
Old
just
Town
know it
Cleveland.
left.
Am I going to have to turn that radio down? Probably.
Yeah, you are, because I hear myself talking.
Well, let me turn it down a little bit.
Okay.
That'd work right there.
How'd your reunion go, buddy?
Oh, great. Just great.
Did you catch your grass skirt on fire?
Well, I ain't going to answer that. Yeah, we had a real good deal. About 100 people showed up. Yeah, it was good. Shady Valley. I was born and raised in the head of Shady Valley. On Old Parksville Road, you can see all the way from our house down the valley. Know most of the people. Worked for most of them. I used to drive tractor for Charlie Hope a lot, and he rented our farm later years. And while I'm on it, the Springs. Well, it's great to not remember names. The spring you're looking for there a minute ago, and I'll just tell you just exactly where it's at.
Haslam?
The what?
Haslam? Was it Haslam Springs?
McCaslin's, or the one at
Morlocks up there.
All right, if you come off of Peach Orchard Hill Road into the Benton Pike, go 50 foot to your right there, the little driveway, and it leads you out there to Morlock Springs, and there are 7 springs in that area right there together. Part of them has tiles in it. Part of them, did we lose you?
No,
you're there.
Part of them, it's a beautiful spring. It's not a big one. Plenty of good fresh water runs off of it. And it feeds the creek that runs through the golf course and goes into the 5-mile branch that there at the head of Shady Valley at the golf course. They run together, and that's what makes up the spring, the creek that runs down through Shady Valley. The Hope brothers for years were some of the biggest farmers in Shady Valley, prominent people and good people, and I know all the brothers, not real well, but mainly Charlie. And I don't know whether you've covered that there was a Shady Valley School right there next to Charlie Hope's farm where he lived at, and the white pillars is still standing, and they built a brick house back there from it now a few years ago. We used to go play basketball with Shady Valley School from Tavina. Always fun, but because that land is so red down there that the ball court was dirt, and when you got back to Savannah, they could tell where you'd been. You'd been Shady Valley playing ball, because that ball court was always wet and always slick and always red. but you can identify where the school was by the two white pillars, and I'm glad they've left them for a landmark, I reckon, because they've been there all these years. And prettiest place below there, if you just out sightseeing, it's a nice place to drive, is the church. And if I get the name wrong, I reckon it's Free Will Friendship, where the creek runs in front of the
New Friendship, I believe it's called.
Yeah, and that's a pretty place. I'll cover this, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. When the tornado come through and hit Hamilton's house and blowed it down, it's still standing there, part of the foundation. They was big trees all the way around that church house, all big old trees, hickories and stuff, big. And it busted one window in that church, and it come through within 100 yards of that church house. Straight across from the church up on the hill is the church graveyard. Most people don't know it's up there. Nice kept graveyard up on top of the hill, due west of the church. I heard somebody mention, I don't know whether you mentioned the Bacons or not, but the Bacons had a operational farm there for years. Just closed it down the last few years.
Is that on Old Bacon Road?
Well, yeah, the old original house, two-story house, stands on Bacon Road, but it was joined to the Shady Valley Road there. It's right on the road. Mainly, I think that old house on the left, and they've closed it off now. They was renting it, but they've closed it off now. Was a renter's house, and they rented it out, and that was originally, and I think I heard somebody, I was driving a while ago listening, was a Smith. That's
Israel Smith's house?
Yeah, Red touched that. I missed a gold mine there.
Yeah. I think is that Israel Smith, Sheriff Israel Smith's house, Jack? Jack doesn't know. Now, the last time we had this show, or we did a show something like this, someone called in and said the old Israel Smith house was still standing in the valley.
Well, that's probably it, because she touched something about the school teacher. She was originally a Smith and married Bamberg and lived over here on the Benton Pike near Michigan Avenue School. She was raised there, and her husband told me there's a motorcycle sitting in that barn that I could buy for nothing with 4 miles on it. And I let that get away. I thought he didn't know what he was talking about, and sure enough, that boy had bought the motorcycle brand new at Howard Griffiths and wrecked it, turning in on at the golf course there on Shady Valley, and took it home and put it in that barn. It stayed there for 50 years. Anyway, I don't know nothing about the country, but I love my country. I've lived here all my life, and some of it I've forgotten. But I just thought I'd share that a little bit.
Well, thanks so much.
Now, Ed,
but
Ed, every day you need to write down one of these stories.
Oh, what's my name again?
Yeah. Well, that's it. Just remember where you put it after you wrote it.
Anyway, yeah, I do a little bit, but here lately I've been really working hard. I changed rooms, and that took up a lot of my time. Just walking in there in your... No, I'm just pulling your leg. But anyway, I appreciate the time, and I'll get off here and let somebody else.
Thank you, Mr. Ed.
Thank you,
Call
Ed.
back anytime.
For people who don't know, Israel Smith was the only sheriff killed in Bradley County, killed down in McDonald area by the Boring brothers. He was on a moonshine raid. And there's some other interesting stories about that, but that's the only sheriff ever killed on duty in Bradley County. So, and a few years ago. I have a picture of him, too.
That's the bad thing about this little book. It doesn't have an index in it. I thought, oh, no, that would be a terrible index to
Well,
make.
you just have to read the whole thing. I haven't got through all of it. Just there were some poems in there, some a Cherokee poem or something. I believe I read in
The
there.
house that he's talking about on the Old Bacon Road, I was waiting for the police to come get me one day because I kept turning around in their driveway because I could tell it was an old house by looking at it. That at least, a lot of times if you have two houses that look like they were put together, one of them's really, really old. And that's kind of the feeling I got when I was looking at that house. And I'm not sure that I hadn't actually talked to the people that were renting it there for a while. I talked to so many people, sometimes I can't remember.
I want to go back. You said there used to be a lot of dairy farms, and we know here in Bradley County that the amount of dairy farms have decreased, and there are probably 10 operating dairy farms now, I think.
In the county.
Yeah.
Yep.
And why does the dairy farms going away? Just just the cost of doing business, or the profits are gone, or?
It's like so many other things, the profit margin has shrunk because of the larger dairies, and you just have to get bigger. And we've had a few that get bigger and stay in, but the small one, it's just more difficult to make a living. And then several of us got older, and children weren't interested. So
right, I think that's a big thing.
I think that's a big problem is that they can work 40 hours a week and still make a living,
Sure.
and on a farm.
Yeah.
You work from sun to sun, but the work's never done.
The interesting thing is the beef cattle around here. You'll hear that, but where do they sell their beef cattle? I mean, how does that? Are this just do local butchers, or is this something that the people come in and buy large amounts of them?
We have a few people that started doing the local sales. The problem with selling beef is. If you package it, it has to be government inspected. Now, you can sell somebody a cow and let them do it. Most people just take them to the stock barn, Athens or Sweetwater, and auction them. They have auctions weekly. That's where most people sell them. Now, some people have one or two that they'll sell somebody for beef. But
yeah, when they sell them at the stock barn, is these people buy them to add to their herds, or they take them to slaughter?
Both. Just depends. Some people will buy them to replace things, depending on which one you sell. The calves, which is the main product of your beef herd, they'll usually go to a feeder calf person that'll raise them up. Then they'll eventually go to the feed lot, but they don't go directly to the feed lot. They have to gain a little more weight.
I just didn't know if they was buy lows. People coming in buying the beef or anything like that.
The beef for consumption usually from a feed lot where they have to fatten them for a while.
So I just didn't know.
We asked Jack these questions because not
we
only
don't know.
not only is he a farmer, but are you the president of the Farm Bureau? Yes. And so if you have farming questions, now's a good time to call in and ask. Ron loves to go out and look at the big fields of corn and
those
soy.
feed corns.
I just got back from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and I can't imagine that many soybeans are actually used anywhere in the world. I have never seen such huge fields of soybeans.
We don't grow a lot of tobacco here. I'm sure back in the early days, a lot of people grew tobacco up along through that valley, if not just for their personal consumption or trade or something. But we don't seem to grow much tobacco in Bradley County now. Is there a reason we don't just nobody farms it, or is there something here that we just can't grow good tobacco?
Well, no, we can grow good tobacco, and we have a couple of people in the county that grow a pretty good acreage.
Now, what area of the counties are those farms in?
Well, Mike Brown in the Charleston area grows.
He grows a little bit of everything, doesn't he?
But a lot of tobacco. And every farm used to grow a little bit. They used to be on an allotment system, and every farm maybe had a half acre, quarter acre, whatever size farm, and you grow that for cash crop. But as time went on, that again, was a little bit difficult with the labor issue. It takes a lot of labor, so people that kind of bought up the allotments and started growing larger acreage. So very few people grow tobacco, but the ones that do it usually grow quite a bit of tobacco.
Yeah, I know my brother-in-law up in McMinn County, the Carter family up there, they grow quite a bit of tobacco on his farm, and his dad used to be over the tobacco barn up in Sweetwater, so they were very involved in it.
And if anybody's wanting to buy 45 acres of prime farm land, they're selling off a lot off of that farm up in McMinn County. It's going to auction, I believe, November the 9th. It's going to be 45 acres and a greenhouse.
Near Short Creek.
Right.
Right.
Prime, beautiful farmland.
And right on Agency Creek, I believe, runs right through that area there, so a lot of water capability. And if you go up into Kentucky, you'll see, or over in West Tennessee, you see big tobacco barns that are smoking tobacco. And now that's a different type of tobacco we grow here, or is it the same thing? And
No, that's flue-cured tobacco, and it is different. Different variety.
So we just don't grow that here for a reason?
Well, I don't really know the reason other than that we just don't have the buyers.
That's just
right
the
here.
way their grandpa did it, Ron.
Yep.
I was up in Hopkinsville, and there'd be lots of barns smoking in the evenings.
It's very interesting there. But I just wondered, and I know that Mr. Carter used to tell me is that you had to be real careful about if you planted tobacco, then you can't plant a second type because you didn't want them to cross-pollinate, and all of a sudden you don't get the product that we grow. What, burley, I guess?
Burley, yes.
Okay. I don't know.
He knows just enough to be dangerous.
I have sat and listened to Mr. Carter talk about it, and I really didn't know. But
when we lost him, we lost a source of great information.
Now, no pig farming or eggs or hens or anything in the up Shadow Valley?
No. Not now. Not in Chattahoochee Valley.
Hen houses are expensive now, aren't they?
As in all poultry houses, yeah, your large scale, they are. They are.
My source of information here online, Debbie tells us that the first grave that's marked in the Taylor Cemetery was David Smith from 1850. So when I say marked, there could be a lot of graves there older than that. Folks, we're already to our mid-show break, and we're going to take a break for 3 or 4 minutes here and let you hear some commercials, and we'll be back with you in just a few moments.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into Cash. Hi, this is Lisa with Check into Cash. Loyal customers have trusted us for 20 years. Get the cash you need now with our payday advance, even without a checkbook. If you need money now before your next payday, come and see us. It's quick, easy, and confidential. Visit checkintocash.com for the store nearest you. Restrictions apply. Borrowers often use payday loans over a period of months, which can be expensive.
Get on down, check into cash.
Wheeler Technologies has moved. Visit them at their new location at 490 Grove Avenue Southwest next to Bradley Rentals. Same great folks, same great service with a better location to serve you. Call Wheeler Technologies for voice, data, and security needs at 664-TECH. That's 664-8324. And remember, depend on Wheeler Technologies for the current time and temperature every day at 476-1111. Tennessee Alarm Contractor C1750. Debbie Moore, co-host of Whoops Old Town Cleveland, has released a regional history book, Confederate Voices. The book is available at the Red Ribbon, the Museum Center at Five Points, and at www.oldtowncleveland.com. And be sure to tune in every Saturday morning at 10 for Old Town Cleveland, right here on Whoop FM.
You save when you buy from the factory. Now you can save even more while we celebrate the grand opening of our new store on the North Shore in Chattanooga. Plus, we'll pay your sales tax on Mermaid products $6.99 or more.
Kiesler Incorporated is in the business of recycling your metal, and they pay cash. The only covered scrapyard around where you can recycle rain or shine. They're located off the bypass on Overhead Bridge Road. Automobiles, appliances, copper, stainless steel, tin, all metals can be recycled at Kiesler, and you can walk away with cash. That's right, they pay cash, and they are the friendliest scrapyard in the Southeast. If you have unwanted metal just laying around, bring it to Kiesler Recycling today and walk away with cash. Kiesler Recycling open Monday through Saturday, 7:30 to 5, or call for more details, 614-3000. Taking a look at that forecast here for your Saturday. Going to be gorgeous, partly sunny skies for the afternoon with highs around 61 degrees. Cool again overnight tonight with lows near 40 and partly sunny skies again for your Sunday. Highs tomorrow around 65. That's a look at your weather forecast on Whoop FM.
Old town my hometown get old, or just me? Did all my friends get old, or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told, or just me?
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. We have Jack Sanders here, and we're talking about Chattata Valley. And like I say, you can go to Charleston and take a right, or you can go up a Benton Pike and take a left at the golf course there. And go up that beautiful valley and ride in some of the beautiful houses, including the Me House that your son now lives in, is remodeling. And I've always said that if I hit the lottery, me and him's going to have a discussion about me buying that house from him. I don't know if he'll sell it or not, but
sometimes that you just don't want to say, like, we're going to start doing something, Ron. We're going to start saying we're going on break, but we're really not going to go on break. So when we get when they get these wonderful telephone calls during the break, they'll be live on the air, and they won't know it.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Ron and Debbie, this is Marion Cook. I wanted to interrupt your
Hey, Marion. Go right ahead, Marion.
discussion there to talk about a concert that the Bradley Concerts is bringing to Cleveland next Monday night. It's the legendary hitmakers, the Diamonds.
Okay.
They're going to take the stage at Conn Center with their evening of classic rock and roll. And I know a lot of your people that listen to your program are into history, so they probably remember in the 1950s and 60s when the Diamonds had 16 Billboard hits and they appeared on American Bandstand 33 times. And, of course, their number one hit was a song called Little Darling, and they sold 20 million copies of that over the years. And, you know, it's not often that we get to bring to Cleveland a group of guys who've sold 20 million copies of their number one hit.
That's not. Now, what time is it?
It'll be 7 o'clock Monday night. That's, of course, October 28th, next Monday night at Conn Center. And tickets will be available at the door for $25. And you'll hear this group sing Little Darling and a lot of other songs that are familiar to a lot of people, like Chantilly Lace and Only You and Rock Around the Clock, and a few songs that we all remember, you know.
I got my foot tapping now.
Marion, is there a membership and you can see more than one concert, or is it? Are we just?
Right. And that's a good point, Debbie. We have two more concerts in this 2013-2014 season, so you can pay $50 and get in to see the Diamonds and the other two concerts, which will be in February. We're having a group called Jesse Lynch Jazz 101, and they take us through 100 years of jazz. And while they're doing that, they show video scenes or on the screen behind them of scenes from those various eras. And then April the 7th, we're having Frank D'Ambrosio. Frank has the distinction of having played the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway 2,300 times. So he is doing a Broadway music and songs of World War II. And as he says, he tells stories of his loud Italian family. And, of course, he sings the music of the night from Phantom of the Opera. So,
well, it's been a few years, but for a great long time, we were members there and would take our children to the concerts because they were so good and so varied. So if somebody wants to sign up for this, they just show up with $25 on Monday night at what time?
At 7 o'clock, and we'll be selling tickets starting about 6.
What a great deal.
Yeah, great deal. And because a lot of places you pay well over $50 to see the Diamonds.
Good deal. Well, thank you so much. Did you enjoy the new exhibit at the museum?
Oh, it was great, yeah. I moved to Cleveland in about, in 1956, so I remembered how the Cherokee Hotel and Pinion Jewelers and some of those things, the theater and all, was a real spot where everybody went, you know, back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks so much, Marion, and thanks for all that you have done for this community.
Well, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good to talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, my source of all information here online says that actually findagrave.com states that David Smith actually died in 1856, not 1850, and he was killed while digging a well, and that Julian Rebecca Julian died in 1843, and she's buried in the Taylor Cemetery. So we have a date of 43, which is really interesting.
And someone said that was the Dunlap Creamery.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
All right. Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yes, this is Karen Johnson. I was a Goins, and a lot of my family lived down on Benton Pike. And I was just wanting to tell you this one story. My other family is a Loftus family, and my uncle told me this, which he's passed now, but he said he could remember his family lived in Pinhook, and they had a wagon, and he can remember a cow pulled behind their wagon on their way to Warlock Springs where they lived.
Isn't that something?
Yes, yes. I just remember. I wish I'd wrote all this stuff down he told me, which all my mother's family is deceased now.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, that was just a little tidbit I want to tell you. Then also my mom told me there's this big old tree in Shady Valley, which we called it, and that's where my daddy serenaded my mother before they got married.
Well, get you a spiral notebook and write down everything that you can remember that they told you.
Yes.
Because, you know, as we say on the show, we'll always remember Pearl Harbor, but will we remember Aunt Pearl? And it's really important that you write her stories down.
Yes, I know.
Thanks, Karen.
Oh, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Jack, who's some of the active farmers up there right now? I just want to talk about those real quick, too. I know that, and they have long ties to the community, do they not?
Yes. We're fortunate in Chedita Valley to still have a lot of the farms in farming. Some of them have changed, but the Calfee family has bought several of the farms in the north end of the valley, which is great. I mean, they're keeping farming, and that's fantastic. We still have Buddy Masner does quite a bit of farming. He's bought part of the original Burke farm. Jackie Evans has some land around there that people use. The McAllisters still. John Moore is a member of the McAllister family, or they were a member of his. So they still are farming quite heavily. So most of the farms are still being used as farms, which makes it kind of unique right now.
And that's going away in Bradley County.
I'm afraid it is. I'm afraid it is. Yeah.
So how many active farmers do you think we have in Bradley County that actually do it for a living now? Is it 20?
It was probably more than 20, but not too many more.
10 dairy farmers we know.
Yes, yeah, and we have some beef cattle people that do full-time farming, and a few row crop that are full-time.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yes, sir. This is Don Wilson.
Hey, Don. What's up, buddy? You're live on the air. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that I wanted to ask Jack if he remembers the old Julian machine shop that used to be over
yes.
in the valley. I was raised right next door to it, and that's how I got to know all the old farmers over there. Bob Julian had a machine shop, and we repaired all kinds of machinery for all the farmers in that area.
That's exactly right. That if it wasn't for him, a lot of people have been out of business, I guess.
Well, they sure would. He repaired a lot of those sickle mowers and things like that, and I was just a young man, just really small. I would hang out over and learned a lot from him.
Well, and that was back in the day that if something broke, they probably could just make one.
They did.
There was no ordering a part on the internet.
Well, now, Don, did he give you little jobs to do?
Did I what, sir?
When you was a little boy, did he give you little jobs to do?
Oh, I had all kinds of jobs to do.
You know what those were for, don't you?
Engines and, and everything about what makes things work. And, it's very, very interesting work.
You know what a lot of those jobs were for, don't you?
Just keep you busy, keep
you out of the way. That's right. I used to hang out at Stacy Cry's gas station down in Spring Place, and I was in charge of changing the flat tires on all the bicycles that came in.
I hung out the one in Charleston for Bob Hughes back when the 75 wasn't even a road. Well, I just want to say, Chedita Valley was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in the world, and we just loved it.
It still is. I love driving up through there, and like I say, I want to buy the Me House every time I drive by it.
Don, where did you go to school?
I went to school at Charleston. I actually went to North Lee Elementary School, and actually owned the old Belfont Elementary School for a little while. bought it, I guess, back in the 90s. And I was going to restore it and wind up selling it. I should have kept it probably. I had the old Liner farm up in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually bought the old school building and that whole farm there at one time. And that was a beautiful place, too. But my heart's always been in Shady Valley.
And you bought a few guitars along the way, too, didn't you?
I have bought a few guitars, and I still do.
Yeah. I put a thing on Facebook. It says, I hope my wife doesn't sell my guitar collection for what I told her I paid for them.
Well, mine told me she would sell mine to bury me. So.
Well, yeah. I have some guitars that are worth quite a bit of money now, but I didn't pay that much for them. You know, I have an 8-string Hagstrom bass I bought brand new from Randy Berger for $180, and I hope she don't sell that for $180 when I die.
Well, the one I bought from Mr. Berger was a Gibson Les Paul Jr., and it got broke when they shipped it to Germany to me when I was over there in the service. And I cried like a baby. I'd like to have another one. I just can't find one.
Well, last year I bought a 72 Black Beauty black Les Paul Custom.
I still got my Les Paul.
Yeah, love them.
Actually got two of them.
I can't afford two of them.
Well, Ron says he has it, but I'd say it's our 22-year-old has it.
Oh, I say you're right. You're right. Well, mine wants it, but he just don't play, so I'm not going to give it to him. He learns how.
Well, thanks, Don.
Appreciate you. I just wanted to give you a comment about that.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
And
very
hey,
much. Good talking to you.
Do you have any old recordings of Scissors?
I do. I've got a few recordings of them, and
well, I need to play them. Bring them down here one morning, and I'll play them.
Well, that sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Which now he's going to say, we've been talking about having a show that's got a lot of the musicians that played a few years ago on. I think that'd be a fun show.
Yeah, we just can't remember what chord is he in or what key is it in. Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
How you doing, Ron? Good morning.
Hey there, Brett.
Good.
What's going on?
Hey, I was listening to y'all talk last night.
Oh, I watched you run out with the team last night. Then you went out. Who did you go out and stand with last night on senior night?
It was Regina.
Yeah, okay, Regina and Cal.
Yeah, I had the honor, a good friend of mine that passed was Jimmy Pickle.
Mm-hmm.
I had the honor of him on senior night.
Right, yes. And and what do you think about all those old Bears showing up?
Yeah.
1,000th game down there.
Yeah, I was going to say congratulations to Damon on that big win Friday night.
It was big. He's got another one coming next week. He's going to have to win.
Hey, Ron.
Yes.
I was going to tell you, Walker Valley and Saudi Daisy are both tied.
For last place?
No.
Unfortunately.
Saudi Daisy's in last place, Ron.
Uh-huh.
And Walker Valley's right behind them.
Okay. Well, I think Walker Valley is going to beat them next week. I'm sure of it.
Hey, they're tied, Ron.
Right. And Cleveland's regular season's over now. They're waiting to see where they go in the playoffs. But all the Cleveland fans are rooting for Bradley to beat East Hamilton, because if they beat East Hamilton, that makes Cleveland #1 in the district.
Yeah. Hey, I just changed the numbers, Ron.
Uh-huh.
Ottawa is ranked number 12,
Mm-hmm.
and East Hamilton is ranked number 8.
Mm-hmm.
These are the records in that regular season.
Yes.
Ottawa is ranked number 12. East Hamilton's ranked number 8. And Cleveland's ranked number 21.
Well, I think they need to get those numbers straight, because Ottawa beat East Hamilton and Cleveland beat Ottawa.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see what happens. It's going to be interesting. Next Saturday morning, they'll determine who plays who in the playoffs. And when you mess with the TSSAA, who knows?
Hey, I'll be listening. I'll be watching that thing on next Saturday, Ron.
Uh-huh.
And I'll let you know what team we're going to be playing in the playoffs.
I can't wait for you to call, Brett.
Next Saturday morning, I'll give you the schedule of all the games that are in the playoffs.
Okay, sounds
Thanks,
good.
Brett.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
We're always in the know because Brett will call in and let us know.
That's Wolf's roving sports
That's
reporter
right.
there.
During our break, Olin Seagraves' daughter called in and said that when the orphanages here dissolved and they took the children to Sevierville, her father actually moved the children. I thought that was interesting, but she wouldn't talk to us about it on the radio.
Now,
and then,
this was a Church of God orphanage?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I understand.
And it's right where Terry Calfee, is it Terry and Diane? That's his name, isn't it? My mind just went blank.
I don't know.
What's Diane Calfee's husband's name? It's Terry, isn't it?
We're both shaking our head. We don't know, so quit asking us.
Well,
I think you're right, Ron. Just go on.
They lived there at the house where the spring is. Used to have the boathouse and everything. So now
and that's actually on the map. It's called the Ritchie Springs, and the Ritchie family lived up in there. And it's kind of an interesting. It would be an interesting study to see up through that valley. It was very mixed for the Union and the Confederates. I know the Ritchies were Confederate. And there was some families that I studied when I was doing the book that I wrote that were up through the valley, but some of them were Union and some of them were Confederate, so it might not have been a very friendly place during the Civil War. Were there any encampments up there that you've ever heard of, John? Surely there were with all that water and that main road. Not that you've heard of?
Not close, no.
Not close.
That I know of, but that was a main road at that time from, from Cleveland to Charleston. I think that was one of the main roads.
It was.
Probably troops passed through there sometime, just...
Well, and it connected to the Benton Pike, which took you to Benton, so it was a main drag, and it would have been very important for them to maintain it. And I know that probably someone's listening that would know. We know that the Michigan troops were over on what's now called Michigan Avenue Road. So,
and that's why I never understood why they called it Michigan Avenue Road. That's always been
just
one of those.
Don't question things. Yep.
I know. I don't want you to say if you know exactly where it is, but with all those creeks and water there, and known that we have so many Indians here. Have you seen anything that looks like it would be like an Indian mound? But don't say you know where it is because we don't want anyone to go dig in it.
I wished I did, but no, I don't. We find arrowheads and a few things like that, but I don't in the valley. I don't know of anything. And of course, they had the big encampment, the Rattlesnake Springs.
Right. Deb could go through there, and she has learned to see. You may have passed them 100 times or 1,000 times, and Deb will say, "Well, that's a mound," and we see them quite often. There's a couple of some places here that we know. Deb and I drive by every time, and we don't say where it is, but we look over and say, that's a mound. There is no doubt. That's a huge mound.
As I stood close to it and asked the nice gentleman that owned the farm, I said, so how many Indian mounds are on your property? And he said, oh, there's no Indian mounds, and there's like this huge mound behind me. And you just know because it doesn't look natural. It doesn't look natural to the spot. Of course, we all know that those aren't from the Cherokee. They're from the Yuchi and the Mississippian and all those really early tribes.
And
now, my theory's always been is that if there was a mound there and people knew that there were people buried in it, that's where you buried your people too. And sometimes that's where some of our main cemeteries came from. They started out from the Indian graves, which is what I think happened down at Flint Springs.
And over time, they just sort of rounded off, and it looks just like Tennessee Hills. But anywhere that there was water, that that the main road went by the water because when they first built the road, you had horses, and the horses had to drink.
Well, and in this area, it's so hilly that they didn't have to build the big mounds like you'd put villages and things on. So I really don't think we have too many of those.
Do you remember, or do you know from any of your reading things when electricity came up through there? I know my dad worked for Volunteer Electric when he come back out of Korea, and they were building power lines in Polk County. Didn't have power. But how soon? When you moved in, was there power already up through there?
There was, and
early 50s, 40s, 50s.
In the 40s, I think, probably.
Well, actually, the north end of Bradley County got electricity fairly quickly because the folks over in Meigs County said we got to get some power over here, and that's how Volunteer Electric started. And thank goodness for Volunteer Electric. But in 1956, down on Red Hill Valley Road, there was no electricity down there on those southernmost farms.
Yeah, it was the REA, Rural Electric, I don't know what they say.
I guess.
Anyway, they put that together because, power had been in Cleveland early because of TEPA built Parksville Dams, and they had city of Cleveland had power, but the rural areas of Polk County and the rural areas of Bradley County didn't have power, and that's what Volunteer Electric. That's just one of the cooperatives. There are about 7 or 8 across the state of Tennessee, or I think it is now, and they have big areas. So, but without them, we wouldn't have had that rural. It's a federal grant, and they got monies for like 1% to borrow money to build the electrical systems.
They used the old Delco systems there in several places, before the power came in, and I remember seeing one in some house in Bradley County. It wasn't used, but I remember seeing the old Delco system that they used to generate power, usually just for lights.
The old Varnell house had some type of electrical system in like that.
That's up at
it's something that
but
operated
close to the Brown farm.
Yeah, you had to go into some kind of chain system. You pulled in, it opened it up, and they explained it to me. I went, okay, yeah.
It had some kind of fan or weather vane or something that blew in the wind, that charged the battery, that operated the lights.
And it was enough to have some lights and listen to the radio. What they told me, what they used it for. So. But you didn't have cable up there then?
No, I don't think so.
I don't even think you have cable up there now.
You don't have it now.
Yeah.
Do you have cable at the Me House?
No.
Well, then don't you be buying that house.
Have satellite.
You have satellite. I have to have my high-speed internet. Do you have? So do y'all bring it in with the satellite now? The high-speed internet.
Verizon has higher speed than satellite does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's a good return to you.
Yeah.
Satellite you don't have a good return. You have a good download, but you don't have a good upload.
Right. Mm-hmm. Before we get too far along, Debbie, I'd like to talk a little bit about Shaded Valley School and the church, the two things that were probably focal points of the valley when I was a child. The Shaded Valley School was 2-room school, had 8 grades in 2 rooms, 2 teachers, Mrs. Chase, Ann Chase, and Miss Lucy Hope. And I've always said that I learned more in 1 year at Shaded Valley than I did anywhere else, because you were listening to everybody else's lessons, particularly if you were in a lower grade in the higher side.
Mm-hmm.
So
amazing teachers at that time.
Yes, indeed.
And I know that we get reports all the time is that not only did they do those kinds of things, but they did plays, and they did, they did the sports and, all that stuff.
Was it heated with coal or wood or?
Had a coal heater.
Right.
Sure did.
I remember being in school. I was started Oak Grove in like 1959 and 60, and I remember them dumping. We didn't have to do anything because we had a furnace, but they did dump coal out beside the school. And they burned coal.
Well, now these were just the heaters in the individual rooms. You had the teacher had to build a fire every morning.
Did you ever get the lucky assignment to go out and get coal?
No. I was young. That was usually the upper grade people that did.
But that was always neat stuff too.
Yeah.
My uncle lived down in Tinga, Georgia, and they didn't even have coal delivered. They'd walk along the railroad tracks and pick up the coals from the coal cars. So he thought that was good because you got out of class for an hour to go find coal.
Well, they would get like one load at the beginning of the year, and when they ran out, then they had to scavenge, as most of the families around the railroad track did too.
What did you do about lunches in those old 2-room schools? Did you bring your own?
You brought your own lunch, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure did. And had long recesses because, they were teaching other classes, so you'd end up maybe hour and a half running around and getting in trouble or whatever.
I started to say there wasn't anybody watching you because the teacher was inside teaching.
What was the common lunch for you or a kid when you was there? I mean, what did you bring for lunch?
Bologna sandwich.
Bologna
That's
sandwich.
about it.
There's an interesting story. I won't mention the gentleman's name, but he was trading his sandwich for a lard biscuit, and he thought it was great. And his mother didn't think that was a good idea. But
nope.
But
it was a good idea.
You ate what was on the farm or what you had to eat.
That's true.
I want to mention again too that something that historians in this area really look forward to. The Fort Hill Cemetery tour is tomorrow afternoon 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The very last tour will start at 6 o'clock, and it will probably be dark by the time it's finished, and they're calling that the Lantern Tour. So take your flashlight with you if you're planning to go late. It's only $5 to go through, and that includes a little pamphlet that tells you all the stories, because the whole time they're talking, I'm trying to remember it all, and so I'm so glad that they kind of type it up for you and include a picture of the person they're talking about. But I believe the Robertson that they're talking about, he was put in charge of the cemetery and actually lived over on the edge of the cemetery and operated it for the time that he was around. And then I think the other guys may be Confederate sympathizers this year. I haven't really read too much about it, but there are like 8 people that they're going to highlight tomorrow.
Yeah, and it is a walking tour,
and Ron didn't think that he'd like it, but when he went, he really enjoyed it.
What you find is that they're going to be young people dressed in period dress, and they're going to tell you, "Hey, I'm so and so," and he'll tell him his life story and what he did for a living, and sometimes why he died if he died unfortunately.
Well, and the thing I like about it is they don't pick out the all the rich people to talk about. They'll find that little common farmer sometimes, or somebody that has a good story but maybe didn't make the history books too much, which is really good.
After you walk through and you do some of these tours, you will find out, well, that's why that we call this here in Cleveland. That's how that street got its name, how that building was built. So it's really great. $5.
I know a lot of times we have a lot of elderly people that go. Please do not hesitate to just walk right up and stand next to the presenters if you can't hear them.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, good morning. Please don't put me on the air.
Well, you are on the air. You are on the air. But go ahead anyway.
Oh, can you tell me, please, exactly where the Israel Smith house is? Is it on the road where the Bill Dodson farm is?
That is Old Bacon Road.
Right.
And we're saying that that's our guess, and I think if maybe someone will call in and tell us for sure. I just know the last time we talked about
the Dodsons lived in the old 2-story house, which is still there, and there's an old house that sits behind that. And I was just wondering if that might be it.
Well, that's our guess.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Oh, did she hang up? So I would really like to know, and I don't recall who called in the last time and told us that the Smith house was still up there. But that's probably, there's so many things up in that valley that need historical markers, and they're just not there. Are there any old store buildings still standing up the road through there? I'd say when you were a young man, there were general stores and... Well,
Tasso was the closest one that I remember. I don't remember any stores in the valley itself.
Okay.
But there were 2 in Tasso. Of course, there was
Who operated the stores in Tasso?
Kibler was the one that I remember. Can't remember.
I have an old store book that's doesn't have very many entries in it from the Tasso area that came out of our son-in-law's family.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Well, good morning, Mrs. Marilyn.
Hey, how's the fish?
Well, the customers are few and far between, but he will be here until noon, and if anybody needs to stock their ponds, this is a good time to do it. These fish thrive in this cold weather. I don't know whether you might have mentioned it while I wasn't with the radio, but now the car show is this afternoon up around the courthouse, and they're going to have gospel music.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I had forgotten it, and that's the final one of the season.
Right.
And is the powwow still? Is this the weekend the powwow is?
I believe that this is the powwow at Red Clay. This morning they opened the Federal Road going across Moccasin Bend, and tomorrow they're unveiling the new monument out at Blythe's Ferry. And I think they're having a big fundraiser at Blythe's Ferry today for Mike Cerna, which is a very well-known Native American flute player that has cancer. So there's something going on all corners of the earth this weekend.
Yeah, but I just hadn't heard you say anything about the car show, and I knew there was a lot of people would go this afternoon. I don't know how early they start with the music, but Trinity Trio, Debbie Huttenhoff, and her group's going to sing. Excuse me. And the Seekers.
The Seekers, okay.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay, all choked up. Bye-bye. Thank you. This is a wonderful time of year that's so beautiful in Tennessee, although it's a little bit cool, maybe that the sun will shine this afternoon and it won't be so cool for the outside activities. But the car show is a great addition to this community, and we're glad that people put the effort into putting it together every year.
Good morning. You live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron. You and Debbie.
Hey, Bernice.
How you doing?
Great.
Well, last week when we got in the car, I said Bernice didn't call us.
Well, we had a few problems.
Oh, no. Okay.
Korean veteran's got some cancer in his bladder.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But I've not forgot yous. I love yous and appreciate yous, and I listen to the gospel on Sunday all day long.
There you go.
Thank you so much, darling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, honey.
You can call us here at 614-5553. We're talking to Jack Sanders about Chattahoochee Valley, and he was telling us about the school and the church.
Right. And up until the 50s, that was the main focal point of any kind of social activity. One thing that I remember thinking as a child, I said, nobody visits anybody during the week, but you see people on Sunday at church, you see all your neighbors, so I guess that was part of it. But everybody was too busy, farming. Of course, kids, they would ride their bicycles and we'd visit everybody, but parents didn't. Sunday was about the only time you saw.
Well, and
your
I think
neighbors.
even as I look at old programs and stuff, the activities of the community were a little bit later in the day, and I think that's so everybody could get out of the fields and get to the church too. And now we try to move things up a little bit.
Well, you took time to get there too, because they weren't built in what we know as subdivisions. Basically it was a farm here, and what was a small farm up through there?
Most of the farms in that area were 200 to 300 acre farms.
Right.
They're pretty good sized farms.
So the next house was on down the road a little bit.
Yes.
So and riding a bicycle, and it ain't flat up through there. You got some good legs riding up and down on those bicycles back through those.
That's exactly
days.
right.
So now, when did the school end? Do you remember?
1959 or 60. When North Lee was built,
We started about the mid-50s, starting to what they were calling then consolidating the schools. They finally figured out it was cheaper to take the people out of these little bitty community schools and put them in one building and transport them. So do you remember the transportation to North Lee when it opened?
Yes. I rode the bus. I went to North Lee for a couple of years. One year. And it was the second year it was open, so I think it was 1960. But Bill Dodson drove a school bus right there, and of course he's one of the farmers in the valley too. So he drove a school bus, and made the run through the valley into North Lee. And
They just figured out at some point in time, and of course it was coming to the situation that people were expecting to have indoor plumbing at schools and all of that, and instead of repairing a whole bunch of little buildings. And thankfully, some people had some vision to them and realized that the buildings were still good, and a lot of them made residents out of the schoolhouse buildings, or they went back to the original families. And
a lot of this change also around that time is that before then, students had to buy your own school books. They didn't provide books like they do today. And in Cooper's bookstore, one of the big things you done was went down and bought your school books. And I don't know if you were right in that period, or being younger, do you remember if you bought your books?
I don't remember having to buy the books.
Right. But
that was a big deal, I think, out of the Clement years.
The 50s, 1950 through 1960, a lot of those changes come. And trying to get Tennessee to compete with the rest of the country, I believe, was part of that. And then the schoolhouses combination. I know Oak Grove Elementary opened 58, 59, and then
56.
Was it 56? Okay. So they were doing those processes, building a lot of these community schools, and that's why we see so many. Trevina, I think, lasted until 72. So that was a long one. Big Springs.
Well, when you got one that was way out by itself, sometimes that happened. We've talked a lot here, Ron, about the number 4 school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was up in the library, you know how you're always looking for something else and you find a treasure? There's a book at the history branch that talks about a reunion that they had at that school in the 1980s when a lot of the teachers were still alive and students were still there and stuff. And if anyone's interested in the number 4 school, that would be a good book to thumb through, I think, because there was a lot of good information in there.
Now,
Next.
do you remember the teacher's name at Chattata? You said
yes, Mrs. Hope and Mrs. Chase were the two teachers. Gussie McAllister, I think, taught some, but that was a little bit before my time.
Now, they grew up in the area too, though, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did that happen a lot of time that the teachers happened to be the people who lived in that community?
I'm sure it would.
Miss Ann Chase was at the central office when I was hired in 1979. She stayed in education for a long time. Next week's show, we're going to be talking about downtown Cleveland. We think we're going to have someone from the Abel family here, and I think John England's going to join us and maybe some other folks. So if anybody's interested in coming on the show and talking about the downtown Cleveland, what you remember, you can call us after the show, and we'll talk to you about it.
I bought my first Pee Wee Herman bicycle at Abel's Hardware.
So when did your family come into town? The big city of Cleveland.
We moved in the Chattata Valley.
I mean, I'm talking about when you came. Did you ever come into town on Saturday mornings?
Not much. Every once in a while. Now, Charleston had most everything. You had the hardware. You had.
Tell us what you remember about Charleston at that time.
Well, you had 2 cotton gins. I remember, and the hardware, and you had Boland's General Store, so you had everything you needed. We didn't go to Cleveland too often, really didn't.
Well, and I think that's something that we forget about. Charleston was the big town then.
Charleston was.
And it's kind of like everything that we had in Cleveland started in Charleston first. You know, you had a lot of lawyers that opened up their offices there. I mean, we're talking about the early 1900s. And right after the World War II, somebody had a outdoor movie up there. They just hung something that's basically a big white sheet on the side of the ramp where they loaded the cattle up into the trains and showed the movie on that. I thought, boy, I bet that smelled good. But they had.
It made the westerns real.
Oh,
I mean, we had an actual drive-in theater there too.
Where was it?
It's just toward Cleveland there, where we always called it the Moon Glow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mr. Edwards, wasn't it? The Edwards family owned it, I believe.
That was a drive-in theater there.
Wow. Do you remember the Moon Glow?
Yes.
You don't remember it well, though, do you?
No.
No. Well,
remember the place I was told to stay away
from. That right places your mama told you not to go.
But that's where you always went, wasn't it? Where you
Well, the Moon Glow is kind of a legend of a place, but we really have not been able to find a picture of it when it was still in operation, which we would really like to see. Of course, there was Banks in downtown Charleston.
Right, Mr. Quisenberry. I think was first there, and then Paul Rogers was kind of president. But yes,
and there had been, and I don't know if they were by the time that you arrived. There were doctors' offices there, maybe with a little pharmacy in it.
Yes, there was.
The Eppersons had a lumber yard. What did the Eppersons have?
Could be.
I believe the Eppersons had a lumber yard there. So there were lots of things going on in Charleston. Not only that, but a wide variety of churches, and it was really the striving place.
Did Bow Waters coming there in the late 50s, did that add to Charleston or take away from it?
I don't know, Ron, but that's a good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because the other night at the exhibit at the museum, the opening of the exhibit, there were people there that were talking about that when their families moved here to go to work at Bowater, there were no rental houses. That just wasn't a thing, that people lived on their farms, and there just wasn't a whole lot of rental houses and property. So they lived in the Cherokee Hotel for like 2 years or 18 months or something. But I think that definitely added to the diversity of the community.
Well, as a matter of fact, yes, it did. And we had a fellow that we rented some upstairs rooms to a fellow that worked at Bowwaters for a while.
Because that was just a real big problem when they came here. They stayed in the Cedar Lane Hotel and other places like that.
Charlie Fletcher, who came here from South Carolina. Mr. Alley came from Newfoundland,
Mhm.
and so from Canada. So.
Well, did when you were growing up, Jack, were there like the little roadside motels? Were those along the Highway 11? Do you remember those in
a few
operation?
of them, yeah, because I mean there weren't any chain motels or anything, but I remember a few of them.
Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yes, I was going to ask Debbie if I have 2 books about Shady Valley that were written by Elizabeth Kate Manley, and I didn't know if she had those or not.
Well, now I have the one that has the Confederate flag on the front of it, and I really enjoy that one, but I'm not sure about the other one. Now tell me again which author is it?
Elizabeth Kate Manley.
Okay, I've got the one that's called. Oh, I know which one you're talking about. There's one that's just called Shady Valley, and then the other one is called
The Julians and the Allied Families.
Shaded Valley Families.
I don't have the Families book, but I have the other one.
Well, this is the Julians and Allied Families, and it's by her too. And I didn't know if you.
Well, I just encourage everybody to do what she did.
Yeah.
And she apparently was just a wonderful historian and really loved it. You can just tell by reading her stuff how much that she loved it. And those books are available at the History Branch, and they used to be available for checkout at the regular branch, but they may have worn out over the years.
Yes. Well, I had inherited these from some of my family that were Julians. So anyway, I was just going to ask you if you had those because I thought you might want to look at them or something. But
what a wonderful treasure.
I don't know what to do with them.
Well, if you ever need somebody to adopt them, I'll adopt them.
All right, I'll let you know. I've got
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I'm adding the new library wing to our house soon.
Well, I've got plenty of old pictures and stuff from Parksville Lake and everything else that I've inherited. So
be sure that you write on the back of them what you know about them.
Yeah, we'd like to look at some of those too because we got a lot of stuff we do with that.
I've got a real odd picture that was in one of my grandparents' photo albums that says Parksville, and it shows a steam plant way down in the valley. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that was at the number 1 dam there.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got one.
Is it actually the fun thing to find is it didn't operate but just a very few times. So if you actually find the one that's got the smoke coming out of it, that's always a fun one. Did your family work at the Parksville Dam?
No,
They just were interested.
No, I was at Parks.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, but
Well,
I've got a lot of old photos and stuff that I haven't had before until my sister passed away, and she had kept all this stuff from the family. So, you know.
Well, call sometime when you're going to be home. Call me after the show, and maybe I'll come by and I'd love to look through your stuff.
Okay.
Thank you, dear. Bye bye. Jack, you'd be amazed that how Ron's not amazed at all. How families call me and say, we don't really care anything about this stuff, but we know we shouldn't throw it away. And so I've inherited things that a historian is so excited about that people have given to me for safekeeping.
Yeah, we are building another wing for her library. It is quite impressive now. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Debbie, do you know if I had Mrs. Manley at Arnold School, would that be the same Mrs. Manley you are discussing as the author?
I would guess that it is.
She was quite a bit older than the other teachers.
I would guess that would be her. And I think that Mrs. Manley was a teacher.
Yeah.
But I don't know for 100% sure, Doug, but I'm pretty sure.
Everybody respected her quite a bit. She was quite serious and quite a bit older. You didn't throw spitwads in her room.
Well, back in that day, you could just whack them on the back of the head and they'd quit.
I don't know much about Shady Valley. I'm just going to lay here and continue to listen. I'm enjoying it, though.
Thank you, dear. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I would say that by next Saturday, the colors up through the valley would be worth the drive up there just to see the beautiful colors. You just have to be careful because every now and then you go around a curve and there's a cow standing in the middle of the road. It belongs to Jack.
There are. We're talking a little bit about the school, and also I did say I want to mention the church a little bit more. One of the callers said something about the tornado that tore a lot of the trees down there in the parking lot, and we still have some around, but it was just amazing, the colors and the trees around the setting that was there and still is. But But when you read some of the histories, and even when I was a boy, we were talking about the fact that when you saw people, you saw them at church, and they were your best friends usually, and that was your social life.
Well, I find that most communities were divided up into the Baptist and the Methodist and the something else, and everybody in that community, within walking and driving distance, went to one of those two churches, and your whole life was there in the valley.
Right. Things have changed as more people were moving in and out, and some of the things have changed hands, but still, the valley is kind of like a unique place, and most people's communities, they feel that way, I'm sure. But you still kind of have a special bond with, if you're in the valley or whatever community that you're from. And I think that's kind of unique, too, in some respects.
Now, does everybody still have wells up there, or does public water come through now?
We don't have public water through the valley. Came over to the firehouse at the fire hall they built, and they came to the Windermere subdivision. But that's only two places. If you were close right there, you could get some.
That subdivision, whose old farm is that?
Well, that was part of Lester Goins' farm.
Wow, Lester must have had a lot of property.
Well, of course, it was the Ritchie farm, and I forget who Lester bought it from. It's in the book.
I believe it was somebody out of the Ritchie family, but it wasn't the name Ritchie. I don't know.
No, it was somebody else. But anyhow, yes, Lester ended up owning quite a bit of land through there, but that was part of his farm.
I was telling Jack before we went on the air that there's some of the folks out of the Cherokees that have been looking for certain families up in there, and we need to get with the documentation we have and see if we can't put some names on some of these farms that may have been up in there.
Well, they were Cherokee land. We just don't know who.
It was Cherokee land, but we just don't know who it belonged to. But these big, massive farms, thankfully, have kind of stayed in big chunks.
The wells are, I imagine it's pretty good water with all the water available through there. Or is it hard to get to?
No, it's not hard to get to. You get to water pretty easily. And that's a good thing. We've been blessed in the valley there with the good water, good wells.
Now, is it all just very fresh water? Or, you go down in Mineral Park and on the other end, and there's iron water and arsenic and everything.
It's got a lot of lime in it, but other than that, it's just hard. But
lime makes it sweet tasting, though.
Yeah.
That's
good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Ron, this is Bob Cash.
Hey, Bob Cash, how are you?
Pretty good. How y'all?
Great.
Hey, listen, Ron, what I was going to tell you, I made a donation to Mark Grissom the other night on that Alzheimer's thing.
Yep.
And I went by the funeral home, and it's locked. I couldn't get in to pay my donation, you see. But I guess I could drop it off at Whoop Monday, you think?
Yes, you can come in here Monday morning or
I wouldn't drop it off in the afternoon, Bob.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm sorry.
I said I wouldn't drop it off in the afternoon. I wouldn't trust Fro and Matador with it.
As long as it's a check, we'll be okay.
But listen, Ron, who do I make that check out to?
I don't know the answer to that, Bob. I think it was the Alzheimer's Association.
Yes.
I think
that would be good.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll do it. Thank you. Now, listen, have you heard from Red today?
We have.
She called in, and she was talking about going over to the old mill.
Is that right? I wish she'd take me and spend some money on me.
Well, she said she had something to spend.
Ooh, what a woman. What a woman.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'll let you guys go and have a good weekend. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Red,
Thanks.
call. I've got Bob's number.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Now, I have to ask all this. Probably a little time you got there, did you ever know of anybody making a little moonshine? There's some good water running down there in a lot of creeks. There got to been somebody made a little shine up in that valley.
I don't remember anything about it, but I remember some of the older people telling me that around some of the mills, when they were children, they were told not to go into certain buildings. So you kind of wonder.
Yeah,
well,
there you
know,
go. Well, there was actually
we've got corn and we've got water.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was a government distillery up in that area somewhere. I mean, up in Charleston somewhere. Right when the, right when the property opened up for the white folks.
Well, yeah, you had to make some somewhere, but and we always laugh about that, and it wasn't a big criminal organizations making moonshine. It was cash crops of corn, and it was for municipal purposes too. A little honey, a little moonshine, and or some moonshine and some honey, or however that was. But a lot of people made it, but it wasn't like they were a criminal organization and furnishing the city of Atlanta.
Well, you didn't mess with anybody else's property, though.
Well, yeah, that's true. But that's with that kind of good water and some isolation and some corn product that they had to be moonshine made somewhere.
That's true.
Now, your farm up there. Now, how many acres do you still have now?
Well, we have about 300 acres in our farm. And most farmers around there now that are still farming rent extra land. So,
right.
But yes, and that was kind of the average farm.
So now, what are you raising now?
Beef cattle, hay. We're doing a little bit of soybeans this year.
Mm-hmm. I noticed a lot more soybeans grown this last couple of years. Is that just crop rotation recommendations?
Because the price has been up.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I noticed that a lot of places where I've seen feed corn, just miles and miles of fig corn, has been soybean lately. So I just didn't know if they were some kind of crop rotation or I didn't, so it's just cost.
That's part of it. I mean, a lot of it enters into it, but that's a big thing. I mean, if you can make more growing soybeans and corn, you grow soybeans.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all right. So I learned something today, too. That's always interesting to me, how agriculture works. And since, we all eat and use all these products, we don't know how it really gets to our table unless you are a farmer. I grew up in a suburban kid, and what I know about farming, I've already said it. Today. So,
and I was talking about the farming too, and a lot of people don't realize how much farming still goes on in Bradley County. It's a very agricultural county, and the matter of fact, the whole state of Tennessee. But Bradley County has a lot of farms, a lot of good crops grown, and they ship and sell a lot of grain, beef, different things that we use, and I think we need to promote it and try to take care of the farmland we have as much as possible.
It's a really fun picture in this little book. One of the pictures looks like from the early 1900s has a woman standing with her back to the camera, and obviously her hair comes all the way down almost to the bottom of her skirt. Thought that was a really interesting picture.
Now that you talked about Chattanooga Church, we're getting close here. But now, what denomination was that?
Well, it's a Baptist. It's a Baptist church, and I remember, and it was established in 1835. It's the second oldest church in the county. Mm-hmm. Candace Creek was the first, just a few months apart. As far Baptist church now.
Right.
Now the Julian started out as one of the campgrounds, and it was like the first camp meetings here in Bradley County. I mean, they actually started prior to the removal.
I know the little Methodist church we lived next to started in
1832 in a little bit different location. It was closer to the interstate than it is now. In the book, as I flip through, I see the Greenville Lee family, and this is a 1920s picture, and it said that was the third generation that had lived in the valley.
Yeah, they were one of the original
settlers. That Baptist church, was it Southern Baptist, or was it a separation? Now. Was it a separation back in those days,
or is it just Baptist?
As far as I know, it came from Polk County. Because there's most all churches were some groups going on,
right?
And then a group from New Friendship formed Lebanon Church.
It's kind of like they sponsored them. They kind of loaned the preacher out for a while until they got going.
Well, actually, my grandparents, the Londons, lived over close to where Lebanon is, and they had been, some of them coming to Chattanooga Valley, to New Friendship apparently, and so they.
Where is Lebanon Church?
It's you go out Hancock Road toward the old Copper Road. you know how to get out to it.
Yeah.
In other words, you go to Benton Pike, turn left, then you kind of turn right on Hancock, going over toward.
Right.
So it's right out in that area.
Now, is there great records of the Chattahoochee Valley Church through the years? You know, there's some really unbelievable. I know we went to a presentation up in McMinn County of a church there in Calhoun, and it was pretty darn interesting about who they let in the church and they didn't let in the church. I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, it wasn't just like everybody comes; they'd throw you out if they caught you a little nip on your breath there.
I was saying earlier, I had a copy of some of the minutes of the church in the 1850s or so, and there's incidences of people being thrown out of the church for dancing and questionable behavior.
Yes, or lusting in their minds. I always like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I always think, well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would be in church if we followed these rules anymore. It would be a lot fewer
Gosh,
people.
this 2 hours is just whizzed by.
This is really great.
Let me say one more thing about Jack's house. As I look at it, Jack, and I'm definitely an amateur at all this stuff, but that really short overhang, see how it doesn't extend out a great deal over the side of the building? That is kind of a Cherokee sort of thing too, is that we find that there's not very much of an overhang on the houses as with some of the older houses. And I just looked up and saw that, and I wanted to mention it before I forgot.
How many outbuildings go with that?
Well, there's a 3-story smokehouse, and then you have and the servant's house quarters right behind it are the 3 brick structures there. Yes.
Now, 3-story smokehouse, that's about like a 2-story outhouse.
It's about
that's
the same
fancy.
thing.
Yeah, so man, that's a lot of meat to hang in there,
Yes,
wouldn't it?
it would
well,
be a lot.
You know, yeah. The what's he using it for now? Has he got a smoker running out there?
Not right now. He plans to maybe restore it sometime.
That would be like I say, it's just a beautiful property. The way it sits up on the sort of rolls off behind it down towards the creek, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah, and just a beautiful place. And if you ride up Chattahoochee Valley, if you come from the golf course, it's going to be on the north end of that, and it'll be on your left. And as you drive by and you see this big 2-story house, you know that you've seen the Me House. And
okay, Jack, somebody online's asking the question. We see the house with the 2 chimneys, and then over here to the right, is that the kitchen with the other smokestack?
Yes.
Okay.
And so now where's this 3-story smoke house? How far?
Well, it's just right
there
right behind the
Yeah.
kitchen part. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just walk out the door and you're right there.
Like I say, it's just a beautiful location, out there, and just a beautiful house. And so, folks, that's been Old Town Cleveland today. Thank you.
See you tomorrow at the cemetery, 4 o'clock.
Next week, we're going to be talking about, we believe it's Able Hardware in some of the downtown area. And
it may just be downtown.
We always try to remind you is we've had a lot of people today that's told us stories. They need to start writing them down. If nothing else, get out some kind of little recorder and just record what you said here. I know one of the great treasure I have is my cousin did that with my grandfather. It's so great to hear his voice and play that back and listen to his stories about his father that, of course, I was never able to meet, of course. And so those are great stories. So find those old pictures under the bed, and people talking about, and the lady said she got a great collection. You know, find somebody who older in the family can help you tell you who's in the pictures, and scan them, share them with people. We'll always remember about Pearl Harbor.
Thanks, Jack.
But we may not remember about your Aunt Pearl. We may not know about your neighborhood, your father, the stores he worked at, and you'd be surprised what a picture of your father you post someday, and they'll say, well, that was my neighbor, or I worked with him, or I remember him or his family, and it brings back great memories. We encourage everyone to do that. Visit the museum, the new exhibit down there, see a picture of the Cherokee Hotel being constructed. Never seen that picture anywhere before. So that's been it here on Old Town Cleveland.
Thanks.
Folks, we'll see you next week here on Old Town Cleveland.
My hometown
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.